Hello and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way for you to exit highly appreciated assets, defer capital gains tax, and help yourself, friends, or family, or clients create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and business minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax referral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, we're also streaming on expert CRE secrets as well. And I'm excited about our next guest. In fact, he is a repeat guest. He's one of the strategic alliances with Capital Gains Tax Solutions. He is the founder of DLP Capital, and he's been able to build an elite organization. And by that, I mean double-digit returns for clients over the years, as well as growth with the company, and on being on a top list that we're going to talk about here in a minute. We're going to talk about leadership and scaling businesses and how he's been able to achieve such remarkable results. Please welcome to the show with me, Don Wenner. Don, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Brett. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, getting to know you for the first time, would you give us just a brief part of your story and your focus right now?
Sure. As you said, Brett, I'm the CEO and founder of DLP Capital. We're a 300 person real estate investment impact company focused on making an impact on the workforce housing crisis and three other very, very significant crises to us. We over 3 billion of assets under management, all from high net worth families, ultra high net worth families, who many of which have backgrounds in real estate, who decide to invest across our funds, and that allows us to go out and invest in building and developing new housing, going and improving existing housing, lending money to other developers, operators, builders to do the same. And it's been a great journey over our last 17 years of doing this. We built an incredible team, which is at the center of that is leadership, which I know we're going to talk about. So it's been a lot of fun, but didn't start all that way. I started in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania as a 17-year-old moving out of my parents' house, thinking I knew better. Supporting my way through high school and college, waiting tables, and sort of stumbling into real estate, and been kind of hooked on creating solutions and impacting this amazing housing crisis, terrible housing crisis, but amazing opportunities that we're all living in today, whether we realize it or not.
Very cool. And for those who want to get in touch with Don right now, you can go to dlpcapital.com. That's dlpcapital.com. And if you want to hear Don's full story, we just did an hour-long kind of webinar/podcast with some clients and some guests about a week and a half ago. That's on my YouTube channel, and that'll also be released on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we dive into kind of Don's entire story and more of the investing side of things. Today, though, we're going to focus on the scaling and the business and the leadership aspect, because I mean, they're one and the same, right? To the extent that your leadership grows, everything grows, and to the extent that it doesn't grow, it kind of halts or stays still, right? And so every organization rises and falls on leadership. And so I became even more fascinated with DLP Capital and Don's story and what they're doing as A, I began to meet their team members, but C, saw their results, and then B, understood their history of growth. And so that's what we're going to truly try to dive into. And it has to do with Don's elite execution system. So Don, what's the number one secret to being able to what is the elite execution system, and then what's the number one secret that you found to help people to implement this?
Thank you. So I wrote a book called Building an Elite Organization, which is on the elite execution system, which is the operating system that we run our organization on, and that we have now had the pleasure over the last number of years helping implement and help a lot of other companies run their organizations on. And I like to think about it as it's putting discipline into a business. And often entrepreneurs think of discipline as a 4-letter word because it feels like work, which is a 4-letter word, and it is work, right? Putting discipline in organization when the market is, if you're in real estate as an example, like we are, when the market's on fire and property values are just soaring, it doesn't feel like discipline's all that important, right? You don't have to do that great of a job to still make money, but when things get difficult, it becomes really critical and important. So the way I think about it fundamentally is every organization has 4, I like to call them quadrants. strategy, people, operations, and acceleration. In order to get sustained growth time over time, year over year, month over month, you need those four quadrants to all grow together, part of one plan that's unified. And that's how we've been able to grow, 60+% a year every year for 17 years, 10 years in a row as one of the 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. Really, really consistent growth. That really consistent growth has come from running the organization part of one plan. We use a tool we call the Compass. And anybody listening to your podcast here is probably like you and I. They're people out wanting to learn and want to grow and seeking knowledge and information. And what I found in my career is I'm always consuming all these books and all this knowledge. And I read one book and they tell me the key to everything is, getting really good at operation. Another is you just need to get really great at content marketing. And another is you just need to get really good at hiring. And another says if you just had a really clear strategy, that would solve all your problems. But the reality is if you get really great at any one area of the organization and don't focus on the others, you end up with a business, maybe it grows fast, but you can't handle that growth and you go down. And that's why most companies go up and they go down, and they go up and they down, and they struggle to have consistent growth, right? Consistent high growth and high profits. So the biggest way that we've been able to do this effectively, this is the center of it. So we say our secret weapon at DLP is the 20-mile march. And we always say, kind of half joking. So when somebody says, Don, what's been the key to your success? I always say there's two things. Number one, we have the very best people, which is leadership is where that starts, which we get into. And then we have a secret weapon, which is the 20-mile march. And the 20-mile march, that term, it's one of our core values. And that term comes from the great Jim Collins. And in Jim Collins' best book ever, in my humble opinion, called Great by Choice, he sets out to understand, all right, his first book, his most famous one called Good to Great, he sets out to say, all right, and he compares, the Southwest Airlines, the Pacific Southwest, and he goes and studies all these great companies. In the second book, he says, all right, well, if you wanted to run a great company, what do you need to do, right? So he goes out and studies for 4 years. What do all the great companies have in common? They're all very different. What do they have in common? And the short story is he includes that all the great companies have one thing in common, the 20-mile march. And the concept of the 20-mile march comes from the parable of it is these two expedition crews set out to go to the South Pole. Nobody ever been to the South Pole before. Similar experience, similar background, similar resources. And the one crew got there 31 days before the other expedition crew. And the group who got there 31 days later, not only did they get there and find out they lost and they weren't the first ever to make it, but they also all died on the way back. And the main message, the main thing that separated these two groups was the group who got there first, they would literally march 20 miles, no matter what the weather conditions were, whether it was -20 and the wind at their face or 50 and the wind at their back, they would force themselves to go 20 miles. So on really terrible days, it would be very hard to push themselves to go forward. But on really beautiful days, they would modulate their effort and not let themselves get exhausted and go 40 or 50 miles. So every day, it didn't matter what happened around them, they marched their 20 miles. The group who died, they would go 40 or 50 miles on good days, and they would stay in their tent and wait and whine on bad days, right? So they let the exterior conditions, the outside world dictate what they do every day. And that's what most organizations do. When things are really great and the economy is wonderful and so forth, then we'll spend lots of money and we'll go and we'll hire lots of people. And then as soon as things get a little bit difficult, right, now we want to hide under our table and we want to stop marketing and we want to cut back and we want to lay people off and we get afraid. We let what happens around us, economy, competition, et cetera, dictate what we do. And the mindset of 20-mile march is figuring out what we do as an organization, but also what does each person in the organization do that produces their results, and making sure that no matter what whirlwind's going around us, we each focus our activities on the things that generate results. And we do that day in and day out, week in and week out, month in, month out, et cetera. So when I tell people this story when I welcome all our new employees and I share this story, we play a little video, I always tell people, what do you think the message is to the story? And somebody always says, well, it's like the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race. And people always say, well, it's about consistency and it's about doing things again and again, and not giving up, and I always tell people, they get a lot of it, but the tortoise and the hare is actually right in the consistency part, but it's not slow and steady, right? So I wear a Fitbit, an Oura ring, and so I track my steps, my activity, right? And I don't many days go 20 miles in a day, right? Most days I don't hit 20 miles, right? So it's not called a 1 mile walk or a 3 mile skip. It's a 20 mile march. And it's not about doing it at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, or when you feel like it. It's about doing it every single day that becomes a discipline. And the pace of going 20 miles every day feels the normal. And when you can get the whole organization, 300 plus people doing that, it's amazing the kind of consistent results you get. And that's part of our DNA. It's part of our culture here at DLP.
All right, let me try to unpack that. Wow, so much wisdom there, right? So the number one secret that you found for to stay consistent is first of all uniting, kind of these four quadrants, right? And uniting and not just focusing on one or being against or the other, but then coupling that with amazing people, right, to help that. But then there's the secret of the 20-mile march where you're not letting the exterior dictate what you're going to do every day, like your convictions, your values, your practices, your habits, and having that mindset and having those disciplines in place and getting everyone to be doing that has been the number one secret to your growth. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, very, very much fair summary. I'd say the only comment I'll add is definitely to do that, right? So we say you need disciplined thought, disciplined action, and disciplined people. And the hard part of that, right? You say it's a great quote and terrible quote at the same time is, if business would be so easy if it wasn't for the people, right? You've probably heard that before, right? So the hard part to that is disciplined people, right? And that starts with leadership. So what drives the 20-mile march, of course, is the people in the organization, the leadership who embodies this. We got rid of the term executive at DLP a while back. We don't have executives anymore. And what we say, because for our lead, executive gives you a false understanding of what our leaders are expected to do, because our leaders are expected to row the boat while they steer the boat, while the boat's being built going down the river, right? And doing all that is hard. It takes a lot of work. And to have a 20-mile march mentality and discipline in the organization, the leaders have to be leading by example. They have to be doing the hard work and leading by action. And so that's what makes the 20-mile march possible.
Question. So how do you maintain the certainty of or the conviction of the day to day, right? What have you found, and not just maybe you, but also for the team? Like, how are you maintaining this conviction that it is the 20-mile march, right? That it is the certainty of the consistency and helping your folks to continue to grow as leaders?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and I'd say for us at this point it's so ingrained, and for anybody who's been here a little while, because we've proven it time and time again, right? We've seen it happen, and we know that we follow this level of consistent discipline that the results come, right? There's not a magic or a mystery anymore, so what does it take to be successful? What does it take to hit our goals? So both at the professional or the company level and at the individual level, we have these tools we call the compass. And so we have a elite compass, which is for your organization, for your business. And then every person at DLP has a personal compass. And both of these tools are similar in respect that as an individual level, we each set our own individual or our family core values. Each person, organization has their own mission, their own BHAG, their own component things like what do you want to be remembered for? They have their long-term, what we call perfect life numbers. They set 100-year checkpoints, 50-year checkpoints, 10-year checkpoints, and then they lay out an every year living fully dashboard. What are they going to accomplish this year across, all the areas of their life? And we call living fully at DLP is one of our core values, and we consider that when you're achieving your goals and the success and significance you want across all the 8 areas of your life, we call it faith, family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And then we break those annual goals down into 90-day rocks. And so we put a very disciplined approach just to go from why are we on this earth, right? The greatest day of your life, right? The great quote, right? Mark Twain is attributed to, the two greatest days of your life, the day you're born and the day you find out why, right? So when you can figure out why you're here, what you want to accomplish, what success look like for you. One of the cool things that I learned from one of my mentors, Lloyd Reeb, who's the co-founder of Halftime Institute, is this tool we use, part of our personal compass, called the perfect life numbers. And the kind of thinking about it is, if you and I were sitting on a park bench in 30 years from now, and I said to you, Brett, how did the last 30 years of your life go? What would be the measurable things that you'd be able to say, wow, that if they had happened, you'll have been able to say, wow, the last 30 years of my life went perfect, right? What are the things that will have happened? What do we accomplish? What will the relationships look like? What are the most important things that'll happen for you to be able to say in 30 years, wow, the last 30 years went perfect, right? So if you can frame into 30 years and narrow that down, it's a really powerful thing. So we started doing this not on the personal side. We started doing this as an organization, and we started this tool called Elite Compass and laying out this clear direction to our long-term purpose, our BHAG, our flywheel, our mission statement, determining our core values, clearly understanding what client we're serving, who our core client is, and then breaking down what's our 3-year aim, what's our 1-year bullseye, and what's our 90-day things we're going to do, our rocks. And it's amazing. The first year we did it, right? People probably didn't take it all that serious, right? And we set really big goals, and people thought I was crazy. And how are we going to get all this done in a year? And then all of a sudden we get to the end of the year, and it's like, wow, we got all this done. Wow, it's amazing, right? And you start building the repetition. So now we're at the point where I always say, the power I feel when I put something down on the compass, right, is incredible, because I know not only am I going to accomplish it, but I know I have the power of choosing what I'm going to accomplish, right? Because we all only have the same amount of time, right? So if I choose to do one thing, I'm choosing not to do something else, right? That power of choice, saying, hey, if I set this as a goal, I put this a part of our plan, knowing with this 20-mile march mentality, we are going to accomplish it. It's a powerful and amazing thing. So when you build that discipline, you see it happen again and again and again, and you break it down into the daily activities, the daily actions that then turn into results. It's an amazing thing. So we built some really cool tools like the Compass. Another cool tool that we have is called the Elite Journal, that we give out every one of our employees, and we have thousands of people around the country use these to jot their daily goals down, their daily activities, and start building this habit, this repetition of envisioning what I want to accomplish and having it come into reality through focusing on the right activities.
Yeah, a ton there. I want to pull out a couple things. I think of like the great organizations or even sports teams, like the Patriots or the Bulls, or those that just keep winning and keep growing, and it's like the culture and that momentum on their side, right? And so the other thing I think about too is, as much as you're saying yes to all of these really good things, you're probably saying a no to a lot of things, right? So how do you practice saying no, to the shiny objects, to the other thing or whatever, right? And just laser focus, and not even just you, but your organization. Like, how have you built that into your culture?
Yeah, wonderful question. I just want to add one thing on your sports analogy there. So I am, but he passed, a diehard Kobe Bryant fan. And even though, and we all kind of have as a society this desire to hero worship, right? And to worship one individual, and he was your prototypical hero, kind of, take the last shot kind of athlete, right? But over his same time of his career, you had the San Antonio Spurs, who for 20 years in a row went to the playoffs, right? Won 5 championships, and didn't matter who they had on the team, right? They built this culture, like you said, of success, and that's what we all should desire to have an organization, not to be the hero, but to build a culture of that will permeate this success and discipline, year over year over year. So that's been, that's kind of a big focus for us is driving that kind of mentality across the organization. In terms of how we, and I apologize, I lost my train of thought on term what you're
how do you practice saying no, right? Because to grow the way you've grown and to be successful the way you've been successful, right? How are you saying no, and how do you instill that into your culture and your team members to say no to the things that are distractions or shiny objects, or it could be good things but aren't a part of the core mission?
So often we have this day we call Compass Day when our new, so we have companies who come into us and they decide they're going to implement the lead execution system, and we help them do so. And one of the first days that we often do is a day we call Compass Day, where the leadership team comes into our offices and they spend time with our implementers, and I spend some one-on-one time with them, helping them lay out the strategy and direction to the organization. And very often I'll have somebody sit down with us, the leadership team is down, and they've got, 8 businesses they're in today, or they're sort of in, and they're planning to launch 4 different new divisions or businesses, and they have 7 employees, right? And I say half jokingly, you can't have more businesses than you have people, right? But in all seriousness, we get a lot of people who have all these ideas, and it's really fun to think about going into these new business lines, and they're all good ideas, and all, most businesses, just about any business, you can be really successful at if you're the best at it and you're really focused on it. But I get people coming in who have 10 employees or 30 employees, and now they want to add 3 new business lines, and they want to expand into 5 new markets, and they haven't even mastered one yet, right? And they haven't even gotten great at doing one thing yet. They don't even have their leadership team really dialed in on one thing. So how we filter opportunities is number one, through our tool, the Compass, where every time we think about getting into a new business line or a new strategy, we look and say, all right, I know I don't have the capacity, no matter how much I try, to run 10 different business lines or 10 different things that aren't all connected. So we say any business line we're going to go in is going to share the same core values. It's going to be a part of the same purpose. It's going to be a part of the same mission. It's going to serve the same core client. We're going to be able to leverage our expertise and our resources and so forth to be able to think about going into it. And so that's the kind of the first screening tool we use to say, hey, could this even make sense to do? And then once we do that, we look and we say, all right, we prioritize each year across laying out clear goals for the organization, what we're going to accomplish this year, 3 years. And we say, all right, will this help us achieve those goals or hinder us, right? Maybe we need to tweak our goals, but will this move us closer to the bigger picture, our big, hairy, audacious goal we have as an organization, or not? And when you have lots of ideas, we put them on our compass, we call them our 10x opportunities. What are the big opportunities we have? And we have to filter them and say, hey, what ideas could give us the biggest return on the organization we have, on our resources that could fit right now? And so we've never launched a new business line or a new area without first making sure all the existing businesses we're already in, or departments or divisions, are already successful and have the right leadership in place, are making money, are solid, and that whatever we're going to add is going to be complementary. It doesn't mean it's not going to take people's resources and so forth, but it's going to be additive to our goals, additive to the clients we're serving. And that's a hard thing to do, right? There's lots of things I'd like to do, lots of business on our list. And one of the things that's helped us filter this and helps some people like Bo, you might have met Bo Parfit as our chief growth officer, per se, is, he's got a new idea every day, right, that he wants to go into. He's never found an idea he hasn't liked yet. And so what helps him and helps me even is saying, we're not going to go into this business today. Doesn't mean we're never going to do it. It's not on the no list. It's on the not now list, right? So we're going to put it on the list of something we're not doing yet. And then our next strategy meeting, which we do essentially twice a year, and we'll do some intermediate ones, we'll evaluate and say, hey, is this the time to add this new strategy, right? And evaluate this opportunity. So we just now finally have made the decision that we are going to go into self-storage, as an example. And you and I were talking about this just recently, right? So we were going to go into self-storage, and we waited for years, right? It made a lot of sense. We believe it's a great investment strategy, but we weren't ready to add another strategy. Now we are. We have the resources in place. We put the people in place. And that's the thing people forget about is, all right, well, when I realized that every business line has 4 quadrants: strategy, people, operation, acceleration. And when I launch a business, it's going to have the same, it's fun in the beginning when you're ideating and you're thinking about it, right? But now I got to hire people. I got to have leadership. I got to have operation in place. I got probably different sets of technology. I've got to, maybe different accounting systems, a lot of different things that have to happen to actually execute on something. When you start realizing that's what it takes, it helps you filter.
So I imagine a lot of visionaries or leaders of companies, right? They might be better with the people, better with the vision, better with the systems, better with the processes, right? So talk about maybe even make you be Bo or different folks, right? Those hires that help you to see what you're naturally not great at seeing, right? Or naturally not great at building. Like help us to understand how you found that person and how you guys interact daily, weekly, quarterly, yearly.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of people will think about a lot of different methodology. Think about the visionary or the integrator, right? The operator, right? And that's a age-old kind of situation. Some of the best companies in the world have that situation where they've got the visionary and then they've got the CEO and the COO, right? Kind of typical situation. I'll say that I am both blessed and you could argue, and I say this tongue in cheek, cursed, because I don't believe I'm cursed. I'm incredibly blessed, but I'm fluent in both. So I am the visionary for sure of the organization, and have very clear. I can see where we're going, crystal clear in my mind, and but I also have the ability to put my feet in the dirt and do the work and implement and put in operations. So, as Jackie, my coach, likes to say, right, I am the visionary for sure, but I literally wrote the book on execution, right? So I do execute, and I do have my feet. But if I probably was less fluent in execution and operations, we'd probably be growing even faster, because I would have done an even better job of hiring more great operators and pulling myself more out of that. And so I've done that steadily, and we have great operators who run different departments, but I'm still very involved in operations. So what I would say though is, for those who maybe aren't as fluent in operations or more on the visionary side, it is definitely very important that you have and hire or partner with somebody who's great on the operations side, who can see the how to implement the idea, right? Not just the what to do, but the how to do it. But you can't, as the visionary of an organization, my belief very strongly, I think this is fact, is you can't delegate out the discipline, right? You can't go sometimes we get CEOs who are the visionaries, who come along and they learn about our lead execution system. They read the book, they decide, I want to do this in my company, right? They're all on board on it. They sign up, they join us, they go to implement, and they think, all right, I'm going to hire an operations manager to implement that, and I'm not going to do it. Doesn't work that way. If you're the visionary, if you're the person people are looking to and are following, you have to walk the walk. You have to do it. You have to be disciplined. You have to commit to it. You have to be willing to do the hard work that you're expecting everybody else to do, or it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean you can't have somebody who leads the way, but you've got to be doing it. You've got to be doing things like we have these 90-day top priorities we call rocks. You've got to have rocks, right? You've got to be a part of setting wildly important goals, we call them. You've got to do the hard work of being in meetings and solving issues. You have to, be willing to be disciplined. That's not something you can just delegate out, right? And I think a lot of people replace laziness with excuse of I'm the visionary, right? They don't want to do the real work because they're the visionary. It's that they're skating doing real work. You have to be willing to do the real work, especially until you build up the organization to the point that you have strong operators who are running and are disciplined, and that's permeated through the organization. Then maybe you can pull off the wheel a little bit. But until that point, you have to be, even if it's not your natural state, be willing to do the hard work.
Excellent. Okay. Wow. That's so good there. So you cannot delegate out the discipline. Yeah. And I think about, you can't push a rope, right? You got to get in front and start pulling, right? And so I'm thinking
Like
of the visionary, and and you're right. They have the new idea or the thing they know they need to organize. It could be their numbers. It could be their, their marketing. It could be their strategy. It could be the hiring. But what you're saying is, don't think you can just delegate that out by just hiring the person. You mean hire the person, but get out in front and lead through that, right? And pull through that, and eventually. And I think of the word discipleship, right? It's following. I was just studying this morning about it, and it talked about, it's not teaching, although there is some teaching involved. It's actually like absorbing and sharing and life experience and life wisdom while you're doing the thing, right? So it's not like it's not what we might think it is. And so maybe is that a fair summary? So you need to be willing to get out, do the thing, do it with them, and that could take 6 months, it could take a year, it could take 2 years, and then eventually you're gonna look and be like, okay, you're ready to take it on yourself. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we say at DLP, leaders make things easy. This is what we define as the job of a leader. Leaders make things easy so that the team can execute. Leaders show the way through the forest to achieving the team's goals by teaching, coaching, and empowerment. Leaders develop leaders. And you can't delegate that work. And if I decide, hey, I need to hire somebody to run this department or do this work for the first 90 days, 6 months, kind of to your point, I'm gonna have to do more work around that area to spend time with that leader, to set the right direction, to get that person up to speed, to support them, to then be able to have that person in the position to pull back. But in the beginning, I'm gonna have to spend even more work than I was already spending, which can seem counterintuitive. Say, hey, I really need somebody who can do this. But I think, all right, now I'm going to commit to going hiring that person. And for the number one allocation of my time for the last 10 years has been on hiring leaders. And the number two allocation has been on the development of our leaders. And spending time on that, it seems like counterintuitive that I'm going to spend more time once I hire somebody. That's why I'm hiring the person. But you have to spend the time to get them up to speed and work with them, get to understand your goals and what you want to achieve and how you want things to happen, and then be able to turn the reins over. Leaders, we one of our core values is servant leadership, and you've got to be willing to serve. You've got to be willing to do the work. Got to be able to lead by doing.
Excellent. I've read this quote here. It's called the MIT, the most important thing. And an MIT, most important thing is a crucial task that will create the most meaningful outcomes. Every day, identify your three MITs and focus on getting them done. Keep this list separate from your general to-do list. Make sure that daily MITs align with your 90-day goals. And so I think you're touching on some of these. So, and you mentioned maybe just two of them just now, right? Hiring amazing leaders, right? And then helping those leaders to grow. Perhaps those are your MITs, or would you add anything else to you as the head of the company's MITs, and then maybe even the integrator that you help build up's MITs? Walk us through how you've identified your MITs, maybe even how they've changed over the years as things change, right?
Yeah. So we do not use that term MIT. I like that. I never heard that before. The way we operate is every person in our organization has clear expectations. So we have a tool we developed called RREK: roles, responsibilities, expectations, and key numbers. So every one of us owns, ideally, it's 2 to 4 key numbers that you're responsible to, where the buck stops with you. And then each person has part of those key numbers are part of having somewhere generally between 6 to 10 expectations essentially for the year, to what you're going to accomplish. And those will change over time. And those clear expectations for our top leaders are the top goals for the year for the organization, but the ones that they specifically own. So every one of us has generally 6 to 10 top things we need to accomplish each year. And then we build off of that. Then every one of us has 3 professional rocks, top 90-day priorities, and 3 personal rocks every 90 days. And then to take that down the next step further is every 2 weeks, we have milestones that are due, or what are the things we're going to get accomplished in the next 2 weeks that are going to allow us to accomplish our 90-day goals, that are going to allow us to accomplish that enable us to accomplish our 1-year goals, right? So that's kind of our rhythm of bringing it down. And then as a team, every person in our organization is a part of a top goal for their team. We call it a wildly important goal. So every person, some of our top leaders are part of a couple wildly important goals that they're a part of, and they're responsible to make 2 or 3 commitments to move the ball forward towards achieving that top goal every single week. So those are kind of the different kind of tools of setting priorities that each person's a part of.
Excellent. You ready for? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, good.
I was saying, you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, what's the number one thing you do to sharpen your saw? Meaning, the one habit that helps you to continue to be growing as a leader.
I listen to books on Audible or Libra. I mainly use Audible, and I listen to on average about 3 books a week.
Are you journaling or doing reflection? And when you're doing that, how do you practice pulling out the things that you learned from the last 90-day sprint or whatever, or the last 20-mile marathon, or 20-mile march?
Exactly. Yeah. So we literally developed our own journal we call the Elite Journal, which we sell and provide to all of our employees. So yes, I journal every day into that, and then do a weekly summary every week, and then a full kind of summary every 90 days is kind of my habit.
Awesome. What's the number one habit you do to you practice to budget your energy, right? And that could be emotional energy, physical energy, right? How do you what have you learned to make sure that you're spending your time wisely?
So I use the great Hal Elrod's term "miracle morning," which is the name of his famous book. I run that process every morning, which is scripture, prayer, workout, meditation, journaling, and by doing that, it really sets my energy for the day. And then the other thing I've done, which might seem opposite to people that I've been doing of late, is I fast until dinner. Believe it or not, that actually increases energy and focus.
Wow. And what time do you eat dinner at?
Depends whenever my wife has it ready or what's going on, but generally around 6.
Okay. And so you'll eat basically once a day is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then just drink water or
Coffee and water. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Love it. What's I'm checking out this one other one. Accountability, right? So I mean, I imagine with success, right, and with growth, and how do you practice accountability? What does it look like in your life?
So for me, I think I've never had a challenge with personal accountability, but one of the things I've done to help keep that high is I set all the goals. I set my personal compass that I set for my life, and which includes my goals for the year, my rocks, are all public to every person in my organization, all of our partners, all of our members, all of our investors, all my goals, including my schedule, my habits, everything that, kind of part of my personal plan is public to everybody. Right. So, so that helps, keep accountable. I think the other side to sort of accountability that, I don't know where you're going, but is, do not take myself too serious. Right. So, I kind of have a mindset of, being a part of what I'll be remembered for, as we call it, is I want to be most famous in my own home. And that kind of mindset of just understanding that, my kids aren't that impressed with my work accomplishments and whatnot. Right. And so to get mindset of not taking yourself too serious, not over stressing things, not overthinking about things, helps me kind of stay accountable to what really matters.
Amazing, Don. You've poured so much in this short period of time. I want to thank you for being on the show for the second time. And I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts and talents you've been given to be a blessing to others, to help them create and preserve more wealth, help to become amazing leaders, and to reach their full potential. For our listeners who want to connect with you, either invest with you or check out the Elite organization, what are the best places for them to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to dlpcapital.com is our main website on the book and the journal, and a lot of free trainings and tools such as all the compasses that I was referencing. You can get at dlpelite.com, click free resources. You can download a lot of the stuff I talked about here. Find me on my podcast, Impact with Don Wenner, and appreciate the time, Brett, very, very much.
Absolutely. And I want to thank everybody, by the way. I'll be with some of my clients and stuff in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, coming up on the 24th and 25th of August. If you're anywhere near Dallas or Texas and want to come hang out with us, we'll be spending some time with a lot of real estate folks, a lot of masterminding, and then Tony Robbins will be there too. So you can check out that. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can reach out to me or Don to learn more about the opportunities to connect with us in person. And I want to thank everyone for listening to an episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets. If you have a exit that you're coming up on and you want to strategize on how to defer capital gains tax, how to invest into commercial real estate passive or actively, and or just want to strategize different leadership or business ideas, we want to encourage you to go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, connect with us, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, check us out on LinkedIn. We so appreciate everyone listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, and we will